Hey, what's up everybody? Dustin here with Rocky Mountain ATVMC, and today I'll be showing you how to replace the fuel filter on the Honda CRF450RX. So the fuel pump filter obviously filters our fuel before it goes into the fuel pump and then sends that clean fuel onto our fuel injector. Now, like many components on our dirt bikes, after a period of time in use, they're going to wear out and will eventually need to be replaced. Now, Honda recommends that we are replacing the fuel filter at about every 30 hours of operation or after every 12 races, just so that way we can keep the bike running nice and smoothly. So today we're going to show you how to replace the fuel pump filter on the Honda CRF450RX. Keep in mind that this process can also be applied to the Honda CRF450Rs. To do this job, we're just going to need a few basic hand tools. You will want to pick up a fuel filter kit. You can find these on our website under the OEM diagrams. You'll also want to have a paint pen, a pick, as well as some medium strength thread locker. And then you also want to have some contact cleaner rubber gloves, rags, and safety glasses, as well as some oil that we're going to use to lubricate our O-rings when we install them. And as always, be sure to reference your service manual for proper procedures, safety information, and torque specs. To begin, start by removing the seat. Then remove the radiator shrouds on both sides of the gas tank. Next, pinch the fuel tank breather hose with a hose clamp or something suitable. Remove one bolt up at the fill cap. Next, we can remove the tank stay from the gas tank. Lift the tank out of the frame and hang it to the left side of the frame with the stopper cable. Disconnect fuel pump connector. Before removing the fuel line, you will need to relieve the fuel system pressure. Start the bike and let it idle until it stalls. Disconnect the battery's negative cable. Before disconnecting the fuel line from the fuel pump, it might not be a bad idea to clean off the area around it with some compressed air. Disconnect the fuel line from the fuel pump by removing the fitting cover, then releasing the locking tab to remove the fuel line from the fuel pump. Next, remove the stopper cable. Remove the fuel tank. Then open the tank's filler cap and pour the fuel out into a suitable container. Then place the tank upside down. Before removing the 6 fuel pump fasteners, be sure to spray down the area with some contact cleaner to remove any dirt or debris. When removing the fasteners, be sure to loosen them in a crisscross pattern in 2 or 3 steps. Stopper cable guide, washers, 6 collars, 6 conical spring washers, and fuel pump plate. Before removing the fuel pump plate, be sure to index it with the fuel pump and the tank, just so that way once we put it back together, it will go back in the exact same position. Then remove the fuel pump. Remove the O-ring and dust seal from the fuel pump. Before removing the fuel pump unit holder assembly from the fuel pump base, you will need to disconnect the red and black wires on the fuel pump. Make sure to take note the location that these wires came from. Once those have been disconnected, we can then release the 3 hooks from the grooves. Remove the O-ring. Remove the fuel pump stopper and damper rubber from the fuel line unit holder assembly. Remove the fuel pump assembly with the fuel filter from the fuel pump unit holder. Be careful not to damage the wires. Remove the O-ring from the fuel pump unit assembly. Then remove the fuel filter from the fuel pump assembly. Once the fuel pump has been disassembled and the O-rings removed, you will want to clean all the parts off with some contact cleaner. Next, we can install the new fuel filter onto the fuel pump assembly joint, aligning its hook with the joint boss completely. Apply a small amount of engine oil to the new O-ring, then install the new O-ring to the fuel pump assembly. Then install the fuel pump assembly into the fuel pump unit holder while routing the red wire and black wire through the holder grooves. Install a new damper rubber to the fuel pump. Then install the new O-ring to the fuel pump base. make sure to apply some engine oil before installing it. Install the fuel pump stopper. Install the fuel pump unit holder assembly into the fuel pump base while aligning its hooks with the grooves in the pump base tabs. Make sure that the hooks are completely seated at the pump base grooves. If the gap between the hooks and the tabs is more than 1 millimeter, replace the fuel pump unit. Connect the red wire and black wire to the fuel pump base terminals completely. Before installing the fuel pump unit, oil and place new O-ring onto the fuel pump unit. Before installing and oiling the new dust seal onto the tank, be sure to clean the tank's mating surface. Install and oil new dust seal onto tank. Next, you can install the fuel pump unit into the tank with the fuel joint facing forward. Install the fuel pump plate with its identification marks facing forward and up. Align the indexing marks. Install 6 conical spring washers, 6 collars, 4 washers, stopper cable guide, and the 6 fuel pump mounting bolts. When installing these bolts, be sure to apply some medium strength Loctite and then torque the bolts to 8 foot-pounds. Install the fuel tank by hanging the tank on the left side of the bike with the stopper cable. Then connect the fuel line at the fuel pump, then set the locking tab, then install the fitting cover. Reconnect the 5-pin harness connector at the fuel pump, then make sure to secure the locking tab on the harness. Reinstall the battery's negative cable. Then temporarily set the tank into position and add some fuel. Start the bike by pressing the start button or kicking the bike over several times until it starts. Once the bike starts, turn it off. Pull the tank out and hang the tank on the left side. Inspect the fuel line fittings to make sure there are no leaks. If everything looks good, set the fuel tank into position. Install the tank stay and top bolt. Torque to 7 foot-pounds. Then we can reinstall the radiator shrouds. The 2 lower bolts we will torque to 7 foot-pounds. And the upper shroud bolt to the tank, we're going to torque that to 3.8 foot-pounds. Lastly, we can reinstall the seat and torque to 19 foot-pounds. Make sure to remove the kink that we placed in the breather hose earlier. And that's it. That's all there is to it when it comes to replacing the fuel filter on the Honda CRF450RX. Now, if you've liked this video and you want to see more, make sure to hit that like button and then subscribe to our YouTube channel for more product spotlights, how-tos, and top 5s. I'm Dustin with Rocky Mountain. Thanks for watching and keep the wrenches turning.